Opening shot, black and white archival footage. A frozen European road. A line of exhausted German horses, ribs visible through their skin, pulling wooden wagons loaded with ammunition. Soldiers shout, mud splashes, wheels sink deeper with each rotation. Narrator, slow, echoing, atmospheric. By the winter of 1944, the truth behind Germany's war machine was no longer a myth. It was a tragedy marching on four legs. For years, Nazi propaganda had shown the world sleek tanks, armored columns, and the crushing force of mechanized blitzkrieg. But behind that steel mythology existed a reality so primitive it bordered on medieval warfare. Germany, supposedly the most technologically advanced army in Europe, was not powered by engines. It was powered by horses. Millions of them. Visual, close-up of a horse collapsing in mud, German soldiers struggling to lift a wagon wheel. Narrator, dramatic pause. While the United States moved entire armies using roaring engines, thunderous convoys, and industrial might, the German Reich depended on the fragile strength of 2.8 million horses. It sounds impossible. It sounds absurd. It sounds like a secret the Nazis wished history would forget. But it is the truth. The shocking contrast. Now picture the other side of the war. Visual. Endless line of American GMC trucks rolling through liberated France, headlights glowing in the dusk. In that same year, 1944, America supplied its frontline forces with only 6,000 trucks. 6,000 vehicles that fed, fueled, armed, clothed, repaired, and moved entire divisions across Europe at incredible speed. Visual. Split screen, German horse column versus American truck convoy. And as the war dragged on, this gap grew wider and deadlier. The question that changed everything. How could a nation known for engineering, precision, and innovation, a nation that built V-2 rockets, jet fighters, and the feared panzer divisions, still rely on animals to move their armies? Why did Hitler's war machine use more horses than Napoleon did a century earlier, while the US mechanized nearly everything? This wasn't a minor detail. It wasn't a logistical footnote. It was a fatal flaw, one that would haunt the German army from the first day of the war until its final breath in the ruins of Berlin. Narrator. The world saw blitzkrieg. The soldiers lived horsekrieg. A war built on a lie. From Poland to France to the Soviet Union, blitzkrieg stunned the world. Lightning-fast armored thrusts, coordinated air support, mechanized units striking deep into enemy lines. But here's what the newsreels didn't show. Behind every tank division came 50 miles of horse-drawn, not 20%, not 40%, 85. The German soldier lived modern warfare on the battlefield and ancient warfare on the roads. The silent army of 2.8 million. Imagine the scale. 2.8 million horses. Hundreds of thousands more acquired from conquered territories. Entire veterinary divisions to treat them. Blacksmith units working nonstop. Thousands of tons of oats and feed transported daily. Millions of shoes, saddles, reins, and harnesses manufactured annually. Germany had built a war machine that required a stable larger than Europe itself. And yet, they entered the war believing they could win fast enough that these problems would never matter. Hitler and his generals were convinced. The war will be over quickly. Logistics are not decisive. Our speed will overwhelm the enemy before supplies run out. But history had other plans. The American contrast, a machine built to move. While Germany relied on animals to fuel its campaigns, the United States did something unprecedented. It turned its industrial heartland into the engine of global warfare. Henry Ford's factories, GM assembly lines, and massive U.S. steel plants worked day and night. The result? 3 million trucks built during the war. Standardized parts. Identical vehicle designs for easy repair. Road crews, fueling stations, mobile depots, and repair battalions. America did not just build vehicles. It built a logistical ecosystem. Visual. Mechanics repairing a truck in under 15 minutes. A single American truck could carry what took several German wagons and a dozen horses. A single U.S. The bigger truth. Germany entered World War II with the weapons of tomorrow, but the mobility of yesterday. And in warfare, mobility is everything. It decides who eats, who fights, who advances, who retreats, who survives, who wins. The German army had courage. It had discipline. It had ambition. But it lacked the ability to move. And in modern war, immobility is fatal. The real story begins. Visual: German horse column disappearing into a snowstorm. The deeper we go into this story, the more the truth becomes undeniable. Germany lost not because it lacked genius, but because it lacked gasoline. It lost not because it lacked firepower, but because it lacked trucks. It lost because its war machine was powered by 2.8 million animals, against a nation powered by industrial thunder. This is the story of how the most feared army in Europe was slowed. Narrator: steady, atmospheric tone. To understand why Germany chained itself to 2.8 million horses, and why America unleashed an army of just 6,000 trucks that changed the course of the war, we must go back decades before World War II ever began. Back to the roots of two nations built on completely different visions of mobility, industry, and war. Castle Germany's Old World problem. Long before Hitler ever dreamed of conquering Europe, the German military had already made its fatal choice. It wasn't a new weapon. It wasn't a new doctrine. It was something far older and far heavier: the horse. For centuries, German strategy was built on the belief that horses were the safest, most reliable, most controllable means of moving men and supplies. Even during World War I, Germany relied heavily on horse-drawn wagons while other armies were already experimenting with motors. Why? Because Germany had no oil, no vast open highways, no mass production machine like Henry Ford. The German military walked into the 1930s with the same mindset they had in 1918. A horse never runs out of fuel. Visual: black and white footage of German wagons, horses pulling cannons through mud. The problem? A horse also requires 20 to 30 pounds of feed per day, water, gallons of it, sleeping space, veterinary care, farriers, saddlers, trainers, handlers. Germany didn't have the industrial muscle to build thousands of trucks, so they built millions of saddles instead. Woman boot. Meanwhile, across the ocean, a different world emerged. In America, something revolutionary was happening. Detroit was rising. Ford was transforming industry. Engines were becoming more reliable every year. America wasn't building mobility for war. It was building mobility for life itself. But those highways, those engines, those factories, would become the foundation of the most powerful military logistics system in history. Visual: early Ford assembly lines, Model T being built at high speed. Gear: two nations, two doctrines. Germany: highly disciplined, elite soldiers, brilliant tacticians, but an economy strangled by lack of oil, rubber, and manufacturing scale. America: mass production superpower, oceans of oil, factories capable of building a truck faster than Germany could build a wagon wheel. The two nations were heading toward a collision, not just of armies, but of industrial philosophies. Germany believed war was won by the sharpness of its spear. America believed war was won by the strength of the arm that threw it. Horse: Germany's fatal dependency. By 1939, when the war began, Germany mobilized 2,750,000 horses, 185,000 wagons, tens of thousands of saddle makers, blacksmiths, veterinarians, and stable workers. Even the legendary blitzkrieg, the most terrifying offensive in modern history, was powered by animals. Yes, the spear tip was fast: tanks, half-tracks, armored cars. But everything behind them? Slow, heavy, four-legged. Behind every panzer division was a trail of hay carts, horse-drawn ammunition wagons, veterinary stations, manure, exhausted horses collapsing from overwork. Germany had modern armor, riding on medieval logistics. Visual: German horses pulling heavy artillery through mud, soldiers feeding them, articulated lorry across the sea. The United States built the arsenal of mobility. When America went to war in 1941, it didn't bring horses. It brought tank transporters, fuel trailers, spare parts by the millions. And then came the miracle machine that would rewrite logistics forever. The 2.5-ton GMC CCKW, the Deuce-and-a-half. A truck so reliable, so rugged, so mass-produced that it became the backbone of the Allied advance. The U.S. Army didn't need millions of animals. It needed just 6,000 trucks to do the same job. Visual: assembly lines producing GMC trucks, rows of vehicles shipped overseas. Motorway: why America could do it, and Germany couldn't. To move an army you need engines, fuel, roads, mechanics, spare parts. Industrial scale. Germany lacked all five. Oil? Imported. Controlled by enemies. Vulnerable to bombing. Rubber? Imported from colonies Germany didn't have. Factories? Good ones, but not massive enough. Roads? Not built for motorization. Europe was narrow, old, uneven. Infrastructure? Destroyed constantly by Allied bombers. Meanwhile, the United States had the world's largest oil reserves. Factories larger than entire German cities. Highways stretching hundreds of miles uninterrupted. Machine shops and steel mills everywhere. An industrial labor force with nearly unlimited manpower. When America decided to mobilize, the transformation was instant and total. Visual: massive U.S. oil fields, tankers loading fuel, huge convoys of trucks. Globe showing Europe, Africa the global impact of these two choices. Because Germany relied on horses. Supply lines were slow. Armies outran their logistics. Offensive stalled. Winter became deadly. Roads turned to mud traps. Horses died faster than they could be replaced. Because America relied on trucks. Armies could move 24/7. Supplies reached the front instantly. Fuel, ammo, and food were always available. Broken vehicles were repaired in hours. Whole divisions could relocate overnight. Allied advances were unstoppable. The contrast was so enormous that German officers wrote with disbelief. The Americans move entire armies in the time it takes us to. Collision: the setup for the coming clash. By 1943, the stage was set. One nation was fighting the largest mechanized war in history, with animals. The other was using the largest industrial machine ever built to roll across continents. Every German offensive, from Poland to France to Russia, would eventually be slowed, choked, and crushed by its own supply system. Every American advance, from North Africa to Italy to France, would gain speed, not lose it. Because wars are not won by the units that fight first. They're won by the armies that arrive fastest. And America always arrived first. Narrator: rising tension. Germany believed war was decided at the front line. But America understood war is decided on the road behind it. The moment horsepower met motor power, and the battlefield shifted forever. Narrator: tense, cinematic. By 1944, the war had become a race, not of armies, but of logistics. And Germany was running out of breath. Crossed swords: the front lines begin to collapse. As the Eastern Front buckled under Soviet pressure and the Western Allies stormed across France, the German war machine faced its greatest enemy: distance. And distance required movement. But how do you move an army of millions when your supply chain still relies on an animal that eats, sleeps, dies, and cannot be replaced quickly? Germany's answer was simple: you don't. Instead, you hope the horses hold. And the mud isn't too deep. And the roads aren't too frozen. But war does not wait for hope. B-roll: German horse-drawn wagons stuck in deep mud, exhausted horses collapsing, soldiers pushing carts. Delivery truck: meanwhile, the Americans did something unthinkable. While German columns stretched for miles, slow, vulnerable, predictable, the United States had discovered the secret weapon of the modern age: motorized speed. 6,000 GMC and Studebaker trucks powered the American supply chain like arteries feeding a giant. They could drive 24/7. They didn't need food or rest. They could be repaired anywhere. And most importantly, they never panicked under fire. In fact, U.S. logistics officers joked, "Our tanks may stop, but our trucks never will." This wasn't arrogance. It was the truth. B-roll. Endless columns of American trucks, headlights glowing at night, mechanics repairing engines on the roadside. Horst the German nightmare at the front lines. By summer 1944, the Wehrmacht faced a crisis so enormous it couldn't be hidden. Horses were dying faster than they could be replaced. Disease, starvation, exhaustion, air attacks, harsh winters, endless marches. The average German horse lasted only 4 to 6 months at the front. This forced German soldiers to abandon artillery, leave supply wagons behind, hide animals during air raids, move only at night, consume valuable food supplies, and fight without ammunition when the horses collapsed. One soldier wrote, "When the horses grew lame, we pulled the wagons ourselves. It was not war, it was torture." B-roll. Emaciated horses, soldiers dragging equipment by hand, burning wagons left behind. Fire Operation Bagration. Germany's logistics collapse in real time. When the Soviets launched Operation Bagration in June 1944, they didn't just defeat the German army. They annihilated the horse-based supply chain holding it together. As German units tried to retreat, horses drowned in marshes, wagons broke in forest paths. Artillery was abandoned. Ammunition never arrived. Fuel shortages paralyzed motor units. Retreating troops were overrun not because they fought poorly, but because they couldn't move. This was the moment German command realized, you cannot fight a mechanized empire with a supply chain powered by the Middle Ages. B-roll. Soviet tanks smashing through German retreat lines, abandoned wagons on roadsides. Horse versus delivery truck. The Ardennes, a tragic comparison. During the Battle of the Bulge, the difference became brutal. Germany launched the offensive with 17,000 horses, horse-drawn artillery, wagon-based resupply columns, fuel short. B-roll. Long American convoys unloading supplies versus German horse teams struggling through snow and mud, decreasing the impossible math of horse logistics. Every horse required 10 to 12 kilograms of food per day, 40 to 60 liters of water, shelter, veterinarians, rest days, shoes, medical treatment, and constant replacement. Meanwhile, a single American truck carried heavier loads, moved faster, didn't need food, didn't drink water, didn't panic under shell fire, and didn't die when hit by cold wind. To supply one German infantry division, the Wehrmacht needed 4,000 horses. To supply one American infantry division, the U.S. Army needed only 400 trucks. It wasn't just a difference. It was a revolution. And Germany was on the wrong side of history. Warning: when horses meet air power. By 1944, German horse columns faced a new nightmare. Fighter bombers, P-47 Thunderbolts, Typhoons, Mustangs, P-38 Lightnings. These aircraft didn't need to destroy tanks or factories. They simply needed to destroy a horse column, a supply wagon, a single artillery team. One pilot wrote, "The roads were full of wagons. We didn't just strike vehicles, we struck the supply chain itself. Horses could not scatter fast enough. Truck convoys could. It was the end of the road for the horse-drawn army." B-roll. Fighter bombers strafing roads, destroyed wagons, smoke rising from supply convoys. Hammer and wrench. America's secret weapon, mobile repair. Even when American trucks broke down, they weren't abandoned. Each division had spare engines, mobile workshops, mechanics trained in rapid replacement, prepackaged repair kits, instruction manuals simple enough for new recruits, standardized parts interchangeable across units. Germany had none of this. One broken horse wagon meant the entire unit halted. One broken American truck meant the unit swapped an engine in 45 minutes. German efficiency was a myth. American adaptability was the reality. Sculled a brutal endgame. By 1945, retreating German forces weren't just losing battles. They were losing the ability to move at all. Millions of horses were gone. Wagons abandoned. Fields empty. Veterinary units overwhelmed. Artillery immobile. Soldiers walking 20 to 40 miles a day without supplies. While Germany walked to defeat. America drove to victory. Narrator, dark, heavy. It was not the tank that won the war. It was not the plane. It was not even the soldier. It was the simple truth that an army which moves faster outlives the army that moves slow. And in 1944, Germany did not lose to a weapon, but to a machine built for the roads. Their logistics doctrine was holding together, just when German generals thought their horses could still keep pace with a world at war. The battlefield revealed a truth so brutal, so undeniable, that it shattered the myth of the invincible German supply machine forever. Because the real twist was this: Germany didn't lose because it ran out of tanks. Germany didn't lose because the Allies outshot them. Germany lost because it ran on horses in a machine-age war. And the world didn't realize how catastrophic this decision was until the moment everything collapsed at once. Horse, a logistics empire built on sand. By late 1942, deep inside the Eastern Front, something terrifying began happening, quietly, slowly, and then all at once. The German army wasn't being defeated by Soviet bullets. It was being defeated by biological reality. Horses, the backbone of the Wehrmacht, were dying faster than they could be replaced. Cold, hunger, exhaustion, disease. The same killers that haunted Napoleon's armies. But this time, the Germans were fighting a modern war. And modern war waits for no one. B-roll, frozen dead horses along a winter road, exhausted infantry dragging carts, broken wagons in snow. Every week, thousands of horses collapsed on the frozen roads of Russia. Every month, entire units lost the ability to move their artillery. Some panzer divisions couldn't even transport fuel for their own tanks. A German quartermaster wrote, "Our tanks are fine. Our guns are fine. But our supply trains are dying in the snow. We are fighting a war built on animals, not engines." But this was only the beginning, because while Germany struggled to drag food, ammunition, and artillery through the mud with horses, America discovered something the Germans could never recover from. United States America's advantage arrives, and it's not what anyone expected. The US didn't just outproduce Germany. It outproduced Germany in the one category that mattered most: mobility. The US Army didn't move by foot. It didn't move by horse. It didn't move by desperation. It moved by truck. And then came the moment that changed everything, the twist historians still call the mobility pivot. When the US discovered it didn't need 50,000 trucks. It only needed 6,000. Just 6,000 to outmaneuver, outpace, and eventually outrun an army of millions. B-roll, lines of American GMC trucks rolling across fields, mechanics working on engines, trucks splashing through mud. Because one American truck could do the work of up to 50 German horses. One truck convoy moved faster than entire German divisions. One fuel column could keep an entire armored corps alive. The Germans were fighting a 20th century war with 19th century transportation, and they didn't even know how close they were to collapse. But the twist wasn't simply that the US had trucks. The twist was what happened when those trucks reached Europe. High voltage, the logistical shock that broke Germany's back. When the Allies landed in Normandy in 1944, German commanders expected the same grinding, mud-choked, horse-drawn supply nightmare they were used to. What they got instead was speed, unbelievable speed. American divisions moved across France so fast that German intelligence units couldn't even keep up long enough to report positions. Their analysts wrote, "Enemy infantry moves as if on wheels. We cannot predict their routes." Entire German defense lines collapsed not from battle, but from simply being outrun. B-roll, US trucks racing down French roads, dust clouds rising behind armored columns, German units retreating in chaos, while German infantry slogged through the mud, dragging wagons. American forces simply drove around them. It wasn't a battle. It wasn't a contest. It wasn't even a fair comparison. Germany was playing chess. America was playing speed chess. And then came the moment that exposed the final weakness in Germany's supply chain, the twist that turned disaster into catastrophe. The moment the horses became a liability. Germany relied on captured grain, captured fields, captured land. But during the retreat from Russia and later France, this system imploded. Horses need hay. grain, water, rest, and thousands of tons of it every single day. As the Wehrmacht retreated, the horses starved. As the horses starved, the guns stopped moving. As the guns stopped moving, the infantry lost their protection. A German officer wrote, "We had shells. We had guns. We had trained crews. But they all sat useless because we had no horses left to pull them." Artillery batteries were simply abandoned on the roadside. The same artillery that had crushed Europe in 1940 now sat frozen in the snow, surrounded by dead animals. Meanwhile, American trucks didn't starve. American trucks didn't freeze. American trucks didn't collapse. They burned one thing: gasoline. And America had gasoline in rivers. B-roll: destroyed German artillery, abandoned wagons, rows of American fuel trucks unloading at depots. The Allies weren't just outproducing Germany. They were outmoving Germany. Police car like the collapse no one could stop. By late 1944, German divisions were retreating faster than horses could physically move. Their entire logistical model, a model that had worked for centuries, disintegrated under the weight of a mechanized war. Because the twist wasn't horsepower. The twist was horse dependency. When the German army ran out of horses, it ran out of war. A historian later wrote, "The Wehrmacht entered Russia with the speed of a machine-age army. It left Russia with the speed of a medieval army." Meanwhile, American trucks rolled relentlessly forward, day and night, rain or shine. Thousands of miles of road. Millions of tons of supplies. All delivered by engines, not animals. Fire, and then came the final blow, the Red Army's mobility shift. In one of the war's most unexpected ironies, the Soviet Union, a country Germany believed was backward and primitive, began receiving American trucks. Tens of thousands of Studebakers, Jeeps, and GMCs. These trucks became the backbone of Soviet offensives. The German high command was stunned. How is it possible that the Red Army is moving faster than us? They were never this mobile before. The answer was simple: Lend-Lease trucks. Germany, the nation that prided itself on engineering brilliance, was now being outmaneuvered by Soviet troops riding in American vehicles. It was the ultimate twist of the war. Germany didn't just lose to American trucks. It lost to American trucks driven by Russians. Narrator: dramatic, soft. In the end, it wasn't tanks that outran the Wehrmacht. It wasn't planes that broke its momentum. It wasn't even artillery that crushed its will. It was something far simpler, far quieter, and far more devastating. A machine that didn't bleed. A machine that didn't tire. A machine that didn't freeze. A machine that turned the modern battlefield into a highway. The American truck. Narrator: slow, heavy, dramatic. In the final months of the war, when the German front was collapsing and entire divisions were dissolving into frozen roads and burning cities, the truth became undeniable. The Wehrmacht had marched into the age of tanks and bombers riding on the back of a horse. And the United States had marched in on wheels, engines, and unstoppable mobility. Visuals: defeated German columns, abandoned wagons, muddy roads filled with dead horses, American truck convoys racing past. Delivery truck: the war's final calculation. By early 1945, Allied intelligence prepared a number so shocking it contradicted everything the world believed about Nazi military power. Germany had lost over 750,000 horses on the Eastern Front alone. Its supply network had crumbled under its own weight. Meanwhile, America, across an ocean, maintained global supply chains, millions of tons of fuel, hundreds of thousands of vehicles, and the most mobile army ever seen in warfare. The final proof appeared in the simplest comparison ever recorded in military logistics. Backhand index pointing at Germany, 2.8 million horses. Backhand index pointing at United States, 6,000 trucks. A medieval supply system versus an industrial superpower. And in the end, the medieval side ran out of breath. Visuals: aerial shots of endless American truck convoys, contrast with German horse-drawn wagons stuck in mud. Skull when the horse army finally collapsed. Throughout 1944 to 45, German soldiers wrote final diary entries filled with exhaustion, hunger, and disbelief. Our artillery horses are dying. We cannot move the guns. The cold is killing them faster than the bullets. American trucks never stop moving. We cannot escape them. As Germany retreated, it left behind tens of thousands of abandoned wagons, wheels broken, harnesses frozen, horses dead or starving. Entire offensive plans were cancelled not because of Allied action, but because the horses simply could not move. Meanwhile, American divisions were advancing 30 to 40 miles in a single day thanks to their vehicles, sometimes faster than German headquarters could even send orders. It wasn't a battle of armies anymore. It was a battle of time. And Germany had run out of it. Visuals: burning German wagons, broken carts, American troops refueling trucks at high speed. Fire: the final humiliation. Germany couldn't even retreat. As the Allies broke through Normandy, then the Rhine, and finally into Germany itself, German commanders found themselves facing a nightmare no military manual had ever predicted. Their entire retreat depended on animals that could not survive. Artillery fire, hunger, cold, exhaustion, or the speed of American armor. Every time German troops tried to pull back, the same disaster occurred. The horses died. The wagons broke. The roads collapsed. The retreat stopped. And American forces arrived right behind them. The U.S. military wasn't just advancing. It was overtaking history itself. It was overtaking history itself. Visuals: American Sherman tanks overtaking slow German columns, Luftwaffe wrecks on snowy fields, frantic German soldiers trying to cut carts free. Hammer and wrench: the machine that never got tired. America's 6,000 trucks in Europe were only the beginning. Behind them stood 523,000 Jeeps. 2.4 million trucks built from 1941 to 1945. Massive repair networks. Mobile depots. Fuel pipelines stretching 1,000 plus km. And an endless sea of spare parts. German soldiers often described the feeling in their diaries. We destroy one American truck, and 10 appear. Their supply never slows. Ours dies. The American army never slept. Its engines ran day and night. Its supplies flowed like rivers. Its reinforcements crossed entire countries in hours. Where Germany relied on hooves, America relied on horsepower multiplied by machines. This was the real industrial blitzkrieg. Visuals: mechanics repairing trucks at night, mobile fuel depots, American engineers building bridges under fire. Warning: the final irony: Germany could build tanks, but not move them. By 1945, Germany still produced Tiger tanks, Panther tanks, heavy artillery, anti-tank guns. But they couldn't move them. A Tiger tank is useless without fuel. A howitzer is useless without shells. A retreating army is useless if its horses die before it can move. It became the great irony of World War II. Germany had modern weapons and ancient logistics. America had modern logistics and enough weapons to flood continents. And history chose the side that could move. Visuals: stranded Tiger tank, abandoned German guns, American convoys pushing through ruined towns. Char decreasing: the final days, technology crushed tradition. As Berlin collapsed and Hitler ordered phantom divisions to counterattack, his generals stared at reality. They had no fuel. They had no trucks. They had almost no horses left. Meanwhile, America had so many vehicles that thousands were simply left behind after the war, cheaper to abandon than to ship back. At one point, American officers joked that Germany's entire operational mobility could fit inside a single U.S. motor pool. It wasn't meant as mockery. It was a historical truth. The war ended not simply because Germany was defeated, but because its logistics were obsolete before the first shot was fired. Visuals: Berlin in ruins, American troops distributing supplies, horse skeletons on Eastern Front roads. Checker flag narrator: slow, dramatic, echoing. In the end, the war was not won solely by bravery, or firepower, or brilliant strategy, but by the simple, unstoppable force of American logistics. Germany marched to war with 2.8 million horses. America came with 6,000 trucks, and the world learned the difference between an army and a machine. Speed defeated tradition. Engines defeated hooves. And the future defeated the past.